Biden facing questions about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. The Democrats have released private emails sent by the convicted paedophile that reference the US president. One document claims he knew about the girls and spent hours with a sex trafficking victim. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt claims the exchanges have been selectively leaked as part of a smear campaign.
This is truly a manufactured hoax by the Democrat Party. Now they're talking about it all of a sudden because President Trump is in the Oval Office. But when Joe Biden was sitting in there, the Democrats never brought this up because they actually don't care about the victims in these cases.
Sir Keir Starmer's insisted his top team's united despite claims of a leadership plot. Health Secretary Wes Streeting had to come out and strongly deny that he's involved in a coup. The government's apologised after an investigation found decades of abuse at a detention centre in County Durham was ignored by the prison service, police and the Home Office. A report found victims were groomed and attacked at Medhamsley. And the Victims Commissioner for England and Wales, Helen Newlove, has died at the age of 63 following a short illness. Baroness Newlove's husband was murdered by a gang of teenagers in 2007. In the city, the FTSE 100's closed up 12 points at 99.11. The pound buys $1.31 and €1.13. LBC weather. Rain continues to head north tonight, lows of 3 degrees. From Global's newsroom, for LBC, I'm Daryl Jackson.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. Cross Question with Iain Dale.
Hello, a very good evening. It's 8:02 on LBC. Welcome to Wednesday's Cross Question. Joining me on the panel, to my left, Stephen Kinnock, Labour Health and Social Care Minister and MP for Aberafan Maesteg. Next to him is Sir Ranil Jayawardena, former Conservative Cabinet Minister. To my right, Zoe Williams, columnist for The Guardian. It's been too long since you've been on, Zoe. We've missed you. And next to her is James Reed, Chairman and Chief Executive of the employment agency Reed. And he's the author of this new book, Karma Capitalism. He'll explain what that's about in just a few minutes' time. So they're here to answer your questions. 0345 6060 973. You can WhatsApp us on that number, text 84850, and of course watch us on Global Player, the LBC app, or the LBC YouTube channel.
Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. Cross Question with Iain Dale. This is LBC.
Well, let's go to our first question. It's a text question from Andrew, who says, it appears today that certain people within Downing Street have lost confidence in Sir Keir Starmer's premiership. Do the panel think this is a view shared more widely within Labour and also among Labour voters? And if the forthcoming budget goes down badly, does the panel think that a leadership challenge will now inevitably follow? Well, I've got to come to you, Stephen, first, haven't I, on this?
Thank you very much for that, Iain. Of course.
Well, I almost feel sorry for any Labour MP that's on the media today, because it's not an easy place to be, is it?
Well, it's absolutely fine, because governments, of course, go through challenging periods. The key thing is that you've got to stay focused on the task at hand, which is rebuilding our public services after 14 years of neglect and incompetence, getting our public finances back onto an even keel. And as Keir made absolutely clear in Prime Minister's questions today, Wes Streeting is doing a fantastic job as Health Secretary. I can attest to that because I work very closely with Wes. I'm in his ministerial team. It is more than a full-time job. And he's absolutely focused on getting waiting lists down, delivering 5 million appointments when our manifesto pledge was 2 million, 2,500 more GPs on the front line. It's about delivering for public services, getting our public finances back to where they need to be, and that is what Keir Starmer is completely focused on as well.
So Wes has never sat you down in a quiet moment and said, Stephen, if it comes to it, I've got your support, haven't I?
I tell you what, I was getting FOMO today with all these stories about the people being tapped up for this, that and the other. And, I was starting to think, God, what is it? Is there something about me? Maybe
you should be doing the tapping up.
No, the whole thing is just, I think, a bit of a sort of episode of celebrity traitors. I think certain people in 10 Downing Street have gone rogue. I think that's clearly what's emerged today.
Do you know who they are?
We've got to stop that because it's deeply unhelpful and deeply regrettable. I genuinely have no idea. I think all the kind of Westminster bubble stuff about off-the-record briefings and unnamed sources and a government source here, a Labour source there. Who are these people? Who are these people? I genuinely have no idea. If they think that's the dark arts, I would say it's more Mr. Bean than Machiavelli, frankly.
Now, Ranil, you've been through, in your relatively short time in Parliament, you went through a few leadership contests. I mean, does this have the feel of something that in the end is going to result in something? Or do you think it's another one of these things, a bit like the anti-Burnham thing at the Labour conference, it'll wash itself out?
Look, with regret, yes, I have been through this sort of stuff in the not too distant past, and with regret for our country, because it's important to have a strong government. This is exactly what happened to us. The Labour Party here is turning its fire on itself, and either there are two important things here: either Keir Starmer's lost entire control of Number 10, or they are out to kneecap West Streeting, his words, not mine. That's one really important thing. The second thing here is this is happening in part because he simply is not willing to stand up to his own MPs on things like welfare reform, which has resulted in the environment, and I've been there before, it's resulted in the environment that anyone in the Parliamentary Labour Party thinks they can get what they want. And with that sort of disorder, the end is nigh.
Zoe Williams, great copy for Columnist and The Guardian, this. But
yeah, I knocked it off in 20 minutes.
But what about Andrew's question? Do you think that a lot of people have lost confidence in Keir Starmer? Do you think that he's on the skids?
I think the thing is that everybody's lost confidence for a different reason. So, the public perception is that he flip-flops. Under enough pressure, he'll go back on anything. He doesn't cleave to his own values. Everything you thought you knew about him over a period of only just over a year, it turns out not to be true. He seemed like a human rights lawyer. He doesn't seem to care that much about human rights. He seemed like a left-winger. He immediately didn't seem like that anymore as soon as he became leader. So there's a kind of body of people who don't really know who he is because he isn't how he seemed. Then there, of course, there's a kind of anti-welfare reform faction within the party, which everybody talks about a lot, and they got very kind of severely punished, and the whip removed from 4 of them, although that's now been restored. They don't seem to be the coherent people acting against him, though. West Streeting, there have been rumours about West Streeting, about Keir as the kind of placeman candidate, and West Streeting kind of gearing up to launch a challenge since before Keir even won the leadership. So, whether or not these kind of rogue agents from inside Downing Street have just decided to kneecap West Streeting for absolutely no reason, or whether this is the result of a coherent strategy on behalf of the Health Secretary, I don't know, but also I don't really care, because it doesn't, until somebody in that high command acts like they know who they are and will do what they say and won't just cow to anything reform says, and won't be back the next day saying stop sowing division when they were the ones trying to meet them halfway literally 12 hours before. Until somebody seems like they have some values, some project, some programme, it doesn't really matter what the result of these skirmishes is.
You seem to be saying that Keir Starmer's basic weakness is that he has no ideology, he has no conviction.
Well, that's his weakness as far as I'm concerned. Certainly, his weakness as far as the general public. I mean, you get this from pollsters. I don't even take pollsters that seriously, but I do listen to them a lot because I'm often on panels with them. His weakness from pollsters' point of view is that he doesn't do what he says he's going to do, and he isn't who he pretends to be. Whether that is that they want him to have more of an ideology, or they just want him to be a more solid bloke, I don't know. And my personal point of view is that unless you actually have a radical, hopeful vision for change, then you're just squatting on the office.
James Reed, as a business person, do you feel utterly frustrated by days like today, when instead of us talking about how to get the economy moving, we're talking about personalities in Westminster?
Completely. I mean, this is not a good look, and I think people are fed up of political infighting, people going rogue when the country's in the state that it's in. And I think we, in business, want to see sort of positive action and real improvements. And this sort of stuff is a big distraction for everybody. I mean, we're all talking about it, and it's dominated the airwaves today. And I suppose if there's smoke, there's a fire somewhere, isn't there? I mean, there's definitely some people in the Labour Party who are sort of agitating. I've certainly got no idea who they are, especially if Stephen doesn't. But there's a problem here, and I think, in business, a leader's as good as the team they have around them. And I would urge the Prime Minister to look carefully at the team around him and decide whether he wants to keep them or not.
But he's done that quite often over the first 16 months of his premiership, hasn't he? I mean, not just in terms of cabinet reshuffles, but also, I mean, the team within Downing Street has changed quite considerably over that time, sometimes sort of in the same position 2 or 3 times.
He needs a good recruiter.
Well, I was just about to come to that. Because
recruitment's very important, and this makes the case.
But the thing is, I mean, he has actually run something before. He ran the Crown Prosecution Service, which I don't imagine that as an easy organisation to manage, whereas some Prime Ministers come into power having not run anything. At least he's got that experience.
Well, sure. I think running things is difficult. It's complicated, and it involves dealing with lots of different people with different agendas. But I think being really clear about what you're trying to achieve, having a common purpose, a real narrative around what the destination is and where we're headed, really helps in leadership. And then selecting the right team that will take us there. That's what I'd be looking to do in business.
I mean, the problem with that is that we're pussyfooting around a little bit. He doesn't seem to have a kind of faction in Labour. He doesn't seem to have his own little gang. I've never known a Labour Prime Minister. He didn't grow up in the Labour Party. I mean, Stephen... But he did, though. From a boy who was in the Labour Party, so he would have been steeped in all the traditions of the Labour Party, but Keir Starmer wasn't. Well, no, I mean, Keir Starmer has been a member of the Labour Party since he was 15, not 15 years, that would be a blink of an eye in Labour terms. Look, it doesn't matter. If you've always had Labour politics, you're always going to be able to find a little gang in Parliament, whether it's the Socialist Campaign Group, whether it's the people who are really Lib Dems but found themselves in the Labour Party. You'll always find a gang. Why doesn't he have a gang?
Well, I would say that he has classic Labour values, and judge a guy by what he does rather than all the fancy words that you sometimes get in Westminster. And so what I would say on Keir's values and Labour principles are Employment Rights Bill, biggest upgrade to employees' rights in generations. Renters reform, revolutionising the way that renters get treated, rebalancing the relationship between renters and landlords, renationalising the railways step by step. Are they Labour policies or not? I mean, this narrative that Keir is somehow rudderless or doesn't have an ideology or worldview, he primarily is a guy that believes in delivery. What matters is what works. But his delivery is underpinned by a set of fundamental values. For some reason, this narrative has got hold. I mean, I came into Parliament with Keir in 2015. I was never in any doubt that Keir has got what I would describe as classic Labour communitarian values.
Well, we've got a question from Wes. Not that one. It's not Wes in Ilford, it's Wesley in Gravesend. He says, isn't it true that many people prefer ideology over pragmatism? And that's quite an interesting question, isn't it? Because it seems to me that Keir doesn't have an ideology, and some people don't want politicians to be too ideological. I mean, Liz Truss was an example, I guess, of that. But voters want it both ways. They want their leaders to be able to articulate their own values, ideology, call it what you will, but then be able to change their minds when they need to.
Well, I think that's right, that you've got to be able to adapt to a situation. The trouble is you can't promise in a manifesto, for example, no tax increases on income tax, NI and VAT, and then it is rumoured, we will find out in perhaps 14 days, that to hike income tax. You can't do that. No one voted for that, and that damages trust in politics as a whole, but it also damages trust in particular individuals, those people who made those pledges. And so for Sir Keir Starmer and for Rachel Reeves, that sort of pledge that was made, rightly or wrongly, others will judge, that sort of pledge that was made, that is personally very damaging to them. And it also leads to that sort of disruption in the parliamentary party. Well, if that's not required, what else can we ditch? What else can we do? And, on things like the sort of the legislative changes that have been made, the Employment Rights Bill, that's going to create significant problems for many employers across this country. They've already hiked NI for employers, which is making it harder for people to find jobs. Unemployment is going up. It's the highest it's been since the pandemic. This is not a good track record. And so in that sort of environment, it's no wonder our politics is so febrile.
Well, we can have a debate about the Employment Rights Bill. I think I was responding to Zoe's point on this idea that Keir doesn't have a North Star or a political compass guiding him. I've always felt that's complete nonsense. He is Labour to his core. Those policies I've just set out are classic Labour policies. I'm not going to speculate on what goes into the budget. What I would simply say is we have been left with the public finances, and of course, someone that you supported very strongly, Liz Truss.
Rachel Reeves said she wasn't coming back.
Who sent our economy into a meltdown. So I'm not going to take any lectures from the Conservative Party
on talk over them.
Economic or fiscal prudence.
You normally don't ask permission.
I know, but I want to. I mean, this is absolutely classic, right? You're talking about whether the Employment Rights Bill is gonna kill businesses. You're talking about whether it's an iteration of true Labour values. The truth is, as soon as business leans on them enough, they'll be very susceptible because they're constantly trying to feint one way and then feint the other. They're constantly trying to say, oh, we're actually a really great friend to business. Oh no, we're on the side of the worker. They cannot decide whose side they're presenting themselves as. If a politician that had more of a sense of identity were to say we're going to do this with employee rights, then you wouldn't get the head of Marks and Spencer saying that's going to crucify us, because they'd just be like, they'd price it in. But nobody prices anything in with Keir because they don't know what the price is.
The Employment Rights Bill is fundamentally a pro-business piece of legislation. Because the way you drive up
productivity... I leave you two to fight about that.
No, let's get into the 21st century. The way you get proper productivity is through a consulted and happy and motivated workforce. We have this kind of Victorian approach to industrial relations in this country, where you think the way to drive up productivity is by excluding workers from the workforce and treating them like rubbish. How's that going?
It's the Employment Rights Bill
in the OECD.
We do not have
let's get into the 21st century.
We do not have a Victorian approach to workers' rights in this country, and we have not had since the Victorian era. It's improved enormously over the years, and a lot of business people are saying to me,
you haven't reversed any of the Thatcher.
A lot of people are saying
the Employment Rights Bill will do a lot of that.
They're interested in what business thinks. A lot of people are saying to me that they're worried about this Employment Rights Bill because it will put them off hiring, because they particularly concerned about day one rights, and they don't know what they're going to get. And so, people are saying, well, we're going to stop hiring because we're concerned that we might get someone who won't show up, and then we can't do anything about it, or it's expensive. So, and this isn't just business. I mean, the Resolution Foundation's expressed concerns about it. The Tony Blair Foundation's expressed concern about it. And they're sort of Labour-leaning think tanks, as far as I'm aware.
I don't think the TBI is any more A. B, I don't care if business is upset. I'm happy if business is upset. But somebody's got to pick a side, right? They've just got to...
I don't really agree.
Why would you be happy if business is upset?
What they can't... No, I'm sort of being facetious. What they can't do is pretend... What they can't do is pretend that everything they do is exactly the opposite of what everybody's saying it is.
Well, can I just agree slightly with Zoe that, if Labour wants to stand up for certain things, which I happen to disagree with, that is a perfectly acceptable thing in a democracy. But you've got to be consistent, because that gives people a direction of travel. And this is part of the problem with what is rumoured to be in the budget. Rachel Reeves said last year, that she'd raised the taxes, but she wasn't coming back for more. But now she's planning to do exactly that. And if the Labour Party, if this government's going to continue to oscillate on things, which is, I think, actually, in a funny sort of way, what Zoe was saying about other things, if it's going to keep oscillating, no one can plan for that. And that's very damaging for the economy. It's no wonder our borrowing is growing faster than any other country in the world.
And I can't plan what protests I want to go on.
On that bombshell, it's 19 minutes past 8.
This is LBC.
When you're smiling. Banning Dental Group clinics. With over 5,000 top-rated Google reviews. Keep on smiling.
When it comes to retirement advice, the last thing you want is to be put in a bucket. Seen as this type of person, or that type of person. At Fisher Investments UK, we never put you in a bucket. We always tailor retirement advice that's just right for you. Fisher Investments UK. Retirement advice that's as individual as you are. Learn more at fisherinvestments.co.uk. Investing involves the risk of loss. Fisher Investments UK is regulated by the UK Financial Conduct Authority.
At TfL, we're making tube journeys faster in the future, with signalling improvements underway on the Circle, District, Hammersmith and City and Metropolitan lines. And there's also the Elizabeth line, already giving you fast journeys across central London. That is how we're making the greener way to travel brighter for everyone. Search TfL Improvement Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters. Elizabeth line is fast compared to other TfL modes. Greener than total estimated petrol and diesel car emissions.
Have you ever wondered what a sandwich sounds like? Not much to it, is there? Unless, of course, it's a Walker's sandwich. That is good. Now that's what a sarnie should sound like. Go all crisp in with Walker's. Delicious.
Cross Question with Iain Dale on LBC. Text 84850.
21 minutes past 8, we have Labour Health and Social Care Minister Stephen Kinnock with us, James Reid from the employment agency Reid, and Zoe Williams, columnist for The Guardian, and Sir Ranil Jayawardena, former Conservative Cabinet Minister. Right, the next question is from Katrina. My daughter has just qualified as a nurse and cannot get a job. What prospect does she have under this government of getting one? The NHS is hemorrhaging money on top-heavy management jobs. It's not acceptable. We had the same thing last week, where people who are qualified doctors can't seem to get jobs, which on the base, it seems a little odd when we think we're short of nurses and doctors in the NHS. Zoe?
I mean, I think this is a slightly tricky question because NHS they've just signed off on the NHS Public Health England redundancies, which are expensive, but they are meant to get rid of that whole tier of management. So presumably that will have a knock-on effect on if at least the kind of frontline staff versus management weighting. Don't you? I mean, you must agree with me, surely.
Do I?
Yeah, I
Do
think
I ever
so.
agree with you?
I think you'll agree with me on this instance that it's very hard to take a read on it when that's only just been greenlit.
It's very difficult when one person says that their daughter can't get a job. I mean, there could be. I mean, Katrina, I'm really not saying this about your daughter, but I mean, some people aren't very good at interviews. And
no, I think Christine. I think Katrina's daughter's probably great.
Well, she may well be, but I mean, sometimes when somebody can't get a job, there sometimes is a reason for that, as James will no doubt confirm.
A lot of reasons potentially, but I'm surprised to hear that, though. Qualified nurse. I don't know if it's a particular area where she lives or a particular time of the year. I am surprised because I'd have thought that would be a skill that would be very much in demand.
Well, particularly when we seem to be importing so many from overseas.
Right. I mean, I don't understand it really.
Is nursing the big workforce population now? I think that's more social care, isn't it?
Yes, but I mean, when I was in hospital last year, every single nurse on the ward was not from Britain.
Yeah, but they might not have been recruited this year. They might have been recruited 8 years ago.
No, well, that's true, and and they were all brilliant. So
and also,
I'm not
maybe you were in
it.
Tunbridge Wells.
I was
hotbed of
a
hotbed of exciting opportunities all over the world. No, I'm just saying you can't really tell very much about what the populations and who migrated when and who was recruited and who came over for a different reason and trained. You can't really tell that.
But the thing is, judging by the conversations I had with nurses on that ward, several of them were thinking of going back to their own countries because they couldn't afford the rents in Tunbridge Wells.
Yeah, well.
So, Stephen, I don't expect you to be an expert on Tunbridge Wells nursing recruitment.
Sadly not.
Yeah. I mean, you're in charge of the social care side of the Department of Health. But can you reassure Katrina that her daughter at some point soon will be able to get a job?
Yeah, I can't comment on the specifics of what's happening with Katrina's daughter, but what I can say is that one of the things we've announced today, actually, is thanks to the abolition of NHS England and the agreement with the Treasury now about how we're going to cover the upfront redundancy costs that come from that, we're going to be able to significantly decrease the amount of money that's being spent on management and administration. As I think Katrina's saying, too many top-heavy management jobs. We would agree with that. We're about reprioritising that funding so that it's going into supporting and staffing the front line, based on the £1 billion of upfront redundancy costs that will enable us to shut down NHS England. We're going to be saving £1 billion a year from that cost centre and putting that into operational frontline services. So that's the kind of thing which I think will help to free up recruitment. We've also got a 10-year workforce plan, which is coming soon. And I think there are some bottlenecks in the system. There are areas where people are getting qualified and then, for whatever reason, the recruitment process isn't working as well as it should be. There's too much bureaucracy. We want to mobilise IT and much better recruitment processes to make all of that work more effectively.
But there is a shortage.
It's the kind of hard yards of fixing a system which was broken, as I say, after 14 years of neglect and incompetence.
But there is a shortage of nurses still.
Yeah, I mean, we've got shortages across the workforce, so it is a bit mystifying to hear what's happening with Katrina's daughter. I know this might sound a bit odd to Katrina, but if she would like to write into us at the Department for Health and Social Care, I'd be more than happy to follow up and try and find out exactly what's happening. There might be an issue with the particular NHS trust, with HR there, maybe with the Integrated Care Board. Could be a whole range of issues that are creating bottlenecks.
But it's the long-term aim to reduce the reliance on nurses and doctors from overseas, because I think 22% of the NHS workforce is from overseas. And a lot of the countries that they come from could quite frankly do with those nurses and doctors in their own countries. And I've always thought it's deeply unethical that we're sort of siphoning them off.
Yes, we have a target of reducing it to 10%. And you're right that there's something deeply ethically suspect around recruiting. I mean, sometimes you have WHO red list countries which are defined by the World Health Organization as being seriously challenged in terms of their health infrastructure, and we shouldn't be recruiting from those countries. So there's a long way to go, but we have that target and we're very focused. And the workforce plan, when it comes out, will illustrate how that's going to work.
Katrina is back on the text and says she's being rejected because she has no experience. And then Matt says, Ian, yes, 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 doing his Meg Ryan impression. I work for the NHS. There are managers coming out of our ears. Nothing to do with NHS England and the trusts. You could halve their numbers and it would have no effect. Ranil.
Yeah, so, can I say something consensual first, which is, given I'm not a player on the pitch, I can say what I think, and I actually do think that abolishing NHS England is a positive reform. I've never been in favour of additional quangos. Anything that drives greater efficiency, I'm absolutely going to applaud. So I fully support that. There are too many people doing jobs that don't need to be done, and NHS England, but also the ICBs across this country are problems. The people working in our hospitals, including the managers in our hospitals, I do think are doing a good job, but we've got too many people away from the front line and perhaps many steps removed from the front line, and that's where there are still, even with this decision, further things to do. But I do think there's a stranger problem. It's not just nurses. I think I read something the other day, may be true, may not be true, but something in this order of 30,000 people qualified to be a doctor, but there were only 10,000 vacancies. And so we've got 20,000 people who've taken the time to qualify, but now can't do anything with that qualification. And yet, at the same time, in recent months, in the last year, GP waiting times in my old constituency have gone up. I'd urge the government to actually go further than they have and strip out more management than they have, because we need to get those people into work, serving the public. That's really what the focus should be.
I remember when I was in hospital last year on the ward, every morning this nurse in a purple uniform would appear and just say to the nurses on the front desk, "Everything okay? How's it all going?" And she'd just come down and say that, and they'd say, "Jolly good, carry on." And I said to one of the nurses on about the third day this time, I said, "Well, who's she then? What level is she?" They said, "We have no idea. She just appears every day and sort of asks us how we're doing to jolly us up." And I'm thinking, well, there must be more to her job than that.
Well, you'd hope so, wouldn't you? But even that, keeping morale high in a hospital, that's one thing.
Well, I guess
people away from the front line, I mean, there are plenty more examples of waste.
I don't think that's an example of anything, Ian.
I just don't have
there is not enough data there.
Leave me with my anecdotes. Sorry, I've got nothing else. Right, we'll come to more of your questions in a few moments' time. 0345 6060 973. You're listening to LBC. It's 8:30, and here's Daryl Jackson with the news headlines.
The White House has accused Democrats of trying to smear Donald Trump by selectively leaking emails from paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Among them is a document in which the disgraced financier claimed the US president had spent hours with a sex trafficking victim. The Prime Minister's told MPs he didn't authorise briefings against the Health Secretary and insisted his team is united. It's after Wes Streeting was forced to deny swirling rumours that he's plotting a coup. And a report found abuse was ignored at a detention centre where a man described as possibly the UK's most prolific sex offender worked. Young men were routinely abused over 3 decades at Medhamsley in County Durham. LBC weather. Rain continues to head north tonight, leaving drier spells behind. Mild for most, but chilly in Scotland with a low of 3 degrees.
This is LBC.
Hey, Harry.
Hello, mate.
Got any tips?
Your best bet is to play Bet Victor's daily free-to-play guaranteed prize wheel.
What guaranteed prizes does this guaranteed prize wheel guarantee?
The guaranteed prize wheel means you're guaranteed to win prizes, like free bets, free spins, exclusive offers and cash. Guaranteed.
What was it called again?
Guaranteed prize wheel.
Well, I guarantee I'll give it a spin.
And I guarantee you'll win a prize.
Listen to Harry and make your best bet on Bet Victor's guaranteed prize wheel. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. Opt in and spin the wheel. Rewards expire 24 hours after claiming. Gambleaware.org.
When it comes to retirement advice, the last thing you want is to be put in a bucket. Seen as this type of person or that type of person. At Fisher Investments UK, we never put you in a bucket. We always tailor retirement advice that's just right for you. Fisher Investments UK. Retirement advice that's as individual as you are. Learn more at fisherinvestments.co.uk. Investing involves the risk of loss. Fisher Investments UK is regulated by the UK Financial Conduct Authority.
Step aboard the legend of the Titanic, London's award-winning exhibition devoted to the world's most famous ocean liner at DockX Canada Water. Walk her decks, explore her cabins, discover her secrets. With 360-degree projections, VR, an interactive metaverse, artifacts and more. Book your tickets today at legendoftitanic.com.
Cross Question with Iain Dale on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
8:32. Let me reintroduce my panel. Stephen Kinnock is Labour's Health and Social Care Minister, MP for Aberafan Maesteg. Zoe Williams, columnist for The Guardian. Sir Ranil Jayawardena, former Conservative Cabinet Minister. And James Reed, Chairman and Chief Executive of the employment agency Reed. And he's the author of this new book. If you're watching, I'm brandishing it in front of the cameras. It's called Karma Capitalism. It's a biography of Boy George. No, it isn't. It's Why Being a Good Business is Good Business. It's a 30-second elevator pitch.
It's an orange book. It's a small book that contains a big idea. The big idea is called a Philco, which is a philanthropy company. And Karma Capitalism is introducing this idea and encouraging other businesses to become philanthropy companies, which is a company that's owned at least 10% by a charitable foundation. And what's interesting in all the research that we did for this book, companies that have that DNA are more successful than companies that don't. They last longer, they're better places to work, and they make more money. And the other thing they do is spin off a lot of benefits to society through the dividends they pay to the charitable foundation. So there are some great companies in the book. IKEA is one, Lego is another, Rolex, Novo Nordisk, Maersk, Patagonia in America, that do wonderful work beyond what they do for their customers. And I want to change the DNA of capitalism in one Philco at a time. That's my elevator pitch.
So presumably this can apply to small and medium-sized companies as well as all the big names that you've just
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we're not a huge company, Reed. We're a philanthropy company. 18% of our shares.
Everyone's heard of you, though.
Well, we hope we do a bit of advertising. Obviously, another channel, so I hope so. I hope it's money well spent. But yeah, we are a philanthropy company. Though 18% of our shares are owned by a charitable foundation, Reed Foundation, which means we work 1 day a week for charity, and people really like that. So people like working in the company because of that, and people like doing business with us because of that.
Does it frustrate you that a lot of people often think of business people as sort of avaricious, just after more money, more and more money, never satisfied by it, without any care for their workers? Now, I know that's not true, most business people are very ethical and they do care about their workforces. But I know a lot of people are frustrated by that.
Yeah, and I can see where that sort of sense of frustration and dislike comes from. And the purpose of this book is to put business back on the front foot so that it's doing the right thing, not the wrong thing. And what's interesting, it doesn't change the way of doing business, being a philanthropy company, but it does change the way of being a business. It changes the whole way you think about it. And it's much more long-term in its approach. So you don't get companies being flipped or ripped apart by private equity in this model because they're better able to defend themselves. So I think this is a really strong business model. It works for the business and it works more widely. And I really want to just make people aware of it. That's the goal.
Zoe, good interview for you for The Guardian.
Well, yeah, I mean, somebody like me would have some questions around why you need to make it like the way to distribute the profits of business would be to just make it flat structured and put everybody on the same basis, right? Just have total employee parity.
Or communism.
Well, it will be communism. It will be communism if you let them live in your house.
No.
No.
I mean, that's what. I mean, I don't think that works.
No.
It's a different idea.
Well, kind of. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I am sort of saying put the means of production back into the hands of the labourer, but I'm not only saying that. The thing with philanthropy, which is a kind of uncomfortable frame, is that it's a little bit disempowering. Whereas when you go towards a kind of flat structure or a cooperative structure, then you're sort of trusting the people who you work amongst to be as smart as you are.
Well, I think there are many ways of running an organisation. We've sort of stumbled upon this by accident, and I tell the story in the book. And what I've found is it's been really good for our business, but it's also led to a lot of other positive things. We have a charity called Big Give that raises millions every year for all sorts of charities. And we wouldn't have been able to do that or support that if we hadn't been a philanthropy company. And I think you want a mixed economy. You know, the government has a role, obviously, and does important work, but then so should other organisations. And the more we unleash sort of social entrepreneurs across society, the more we'll get done.
OK, well, let's go to our next question. It's Joe in Leeds. Joe, what's your question, please?
Oh, thank you, and thanks for taking my call. I'd just like to ask you in the panel, don't we really need to reform IR35 now? Because it was completely messed up, I think, by the last government who tried to sort of tamper with it. It's really made it difficult for people to be self-employed and to do the right thing. Take a risk, perhaps set their own business up in, whether it be in IT or whether it be in the building services construction industry. It's especially difficult to get companies to follow it, and it's a particularly good means for older people because, like it or not, there is ageism in the workplace. I mean, I've experienced it, and it's something which enables people to stand out on their own, do their own thing. But the governments of all persuasions have just made it difficult, and we just need it to be reformed and appreciate that there's more than one model to working. Not just being in a line position. There are people doing fractional work. There's people doing consulting, contracting, fixed-term contract work, and the government just needs to get out of the way a bit and let people flourish rather than be put on the scrap heap and claiming benefits, as it were.
OK, now James, just tell us what IR35 is.
Well, these were rules that were changed, right, as described by the previous government, that enabled people to set up as companies in their own right. So it enabled small entrepreneurs to get started, and I think there was a sense that there might be tax leakage through that way of working, but it was very entrepreneurial, and there were a lot of people who used that.
But George Osborne restricted it, didn't he?
He did, and every time I'm on one of your programs, there's a caller who asks about this.
It's a
long-standing issue, and I think it should be revisited.
But how does it actually affect somebody who's like trying to make a go of things? How does it affect?
Well, I think it was a way of setting yourself up as a self-employed person that is now not available to nearly so many people, and I think it was very effective, but I think there were abuses. There were some people who were in sort of long-standing jobs, where they weren't really.
Oh, okay.
And so I think that there was a bit of a sledgehammer to crack a nut scenario, and I think it should be revisited, because I think we want to get more entrepreneurial energy, as suggested, into our economy. It's really important if it's going to grow and flourish.
Ranil?
Yeah, look, I don't speak for the Conservative Party anymore, and that gives me the freedom to say absolutely. I've always been a believer that IR35 was a bad policy. I actually think the first restrictions came in under Gordon Brown. Yes, George Osborne further restricted it, and Philip Hammond. I think the Treasury is also very behind restricting it as a matter of policy, because the Treasury likes people being on PAYE, on payrolls, where it's all very predictable, a tax can be collected very easily, rather than people being entrepreneurial and setting out on their own. And, people who are taking the approach of being a contractor and so on, they're taking a risk, right? So if they are sick, they don't get paid. If they take holiday, they don't get paid. If they are between jobs because the contract has ended and they've not found a new one, they don't get paid. And so that's why there should be a different treatment for people who are taking that risk. And so, I very much hope that there was an effort to try and get rid of that. We were not able to land that in the last Parliament. I hope a future government, or dare I say this government, might look at it again.
Well, it's interesting because the loan charge, which we've covered on the programme quite a lot, is all part of this. And I know the government's had a review of the loan charge. I think it's reporting very soon. And Stephen, you obviously can't give away anything in the budget, even if you knew what it was. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, if Rachel Reeves stood up on the 26th of November and said, I'm abolishing IR35 and I'm going to abolish all of the loan charge thing, then she would be seen as slightly heroic among small business people. I don't think she would do that, but it would counter a lot of the other things I think she probably is going to announce.
Well, these are very well-made points and well noted. I suppose it's that constant thing, isn't it, about defining what it means to be self-employed. By definition, you need to show that you're working for a range of different clients rather than actually you've just got one employer and really you should be on payroll and you don't qualify for self-employed status. How do we get the balance right so we unleash the entrepreneurship and creativity and get people to be able to take risks and have employment status that works from that point of view, whilst also ensuring that, as you say, people aren't cooking the books and abusing the system? It's a really difficult balance to strike, but I'm sure that Rachel and the Treasury are thinking about it very carefully.
I can guarantee you the Treasury aren't, because as Ranil says, they're the ones that want to expand it.
Well, there's a growth agenda as well that we must remember.
Hopefully.
Not seen it.
I wonder when we'll find out what it is.
Yes.
You're mean.
Well, okay. We've got interest rates cut 5 times.
Yeah, but that's
wages going up more in the last 10 months than they did in the last 10 years.
Inflation very high. Well, unemployment up.
But we've actually got the highest growth in the G7 for the first 6 months of this year. I was giving after the absolute bin fire that we inherited.
I was giving a talk to the Camden School for Girls this afternoon. Lots of boys there as well. And I was trying to tell them what it was like in the 1970s, when instead of inflation being 3.8%, it was like 25%.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see them in the audience thinking, really? No, he must be making that up. Yeah. Anyway, right, we'll come on to more questions in just a moment. Let's go to a break a little bit early, because then we can fit in some longer questions in the final quarter. It's 8:44.
LBC.
You plan a holiday, you plan a commute. Meal plans, career plans, even workouts need a plan. So doesn't it stand to reason that your money has one too? Because the sad truth is, if it doesn't, it's just sitting there, barely growing, if at all. That's why you need a money plan. And Quilter can help. It's a lot easier to stick to than a workout plan. Money needs a plan. Quilter. Pensions, investments, advice. Find out more at quilter.com.
Waitrose presents
I really fancy a mince pie.
One man's selfless journey from sofa to kitchen.
I'm getting up.
For a #1 golden mince pie with juicy golden raisins, cherries and apricots, and zesty limoncello.
With some cream.
For a #1 golden mince pie with juicy golden raisins, cherries and apricots, zesty limoncello, and a dollop of fresh cream.
Limoncello.
Waitrose, the home of food lovers. Selected stores subject to availability.
Octopus Energy. Great value and outstanding customer service. Recommended by which? 8 years running. Octopus Energy.
Calling all black cab drivers. Let's talk about those quieter times when your meter's taking a little nap. Why not consider Uber? We can give your meter a wake-up call. Join close to 1,000 black cab drivers already on Uber and gain access to millions of passengers at the touch of a button. Black cabs on Uber are priced by your meter, and the service fee will be no more than 5% until the end of 2025. Turn downtime into prime time. Go to uber.com/black cabs to start earning today. Terms and conditions apply.
Cross Question with Iain Dale on LBC.
8:45 on LBC. Stephen Kinnock, James Reid, Zoe Williams and Ranil Jayawardena here with us answering your questions. Here's a text question from Robert in East Grinstead. If Trump is hypothetically removed from office for his Epstein links, would that not, again, like Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, be a totally Pyrrhic victory for victims of sexual abuse? Now, new emails released by the Democrats in the US Congress make various allegations about Donald Trump's links to Jeffrey Epstein, including one sent by the paedophile financier himself, which claims the president spent hours with one of Epstein's victims. The White House has dismissed the claims as a smear, and Trump denies any wrongdoing whatsoever, as, of course, does Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Glad we've cleared that one up. Zoe.
I don't understand what the caller means by Pyrrhic victory. How on earth would that be a victory that had somehow become problematic for the people making the allegations, or indeed the people castigating the allegations? The problem with this scandal, along with every single thing that's ever tainted Trump, is that Democrats, and frankly all of us everywhere, are still playing by the old rules. We're still going, oh, he said he wanted to grab women by the pussy, he must be ended by this. We're still saying we thought Stormy Daniels was going to end him. We think these scandals are going to end him, and all they do is make him stronger. We've just got to become more agile.
How do you explain that?
Well, I think because and this is actually often how you identify the far right, he identifies them, he says the media is a force of evil. He doesn't respect it as a gatherer of truth in any form. So every time it attacks him, he uses that as grist to the mill, that the media is both mendacious, it's fake news, but it's also against me and therefore it's against you. So he's created a ratchet effect where the more people go after him, the more strength it gives to his elbow. But also he's got this kind of simultaneous bully narrative, which you see with him in the BBC, where he's kind of incredibly whiny and like, oh, they said a mean thing, fake news, where in fact he's getting a lot of strength from this and he's not in any way damaged by it. So we collectively, I don't know, I'm kind of talking to myself as a feminist, but I'm also talking to the international left. I'm talking to everybody everywhere who doesn't share Trump's politics. We've got to get better at this, because there is no way on God's earth, even if we got a picture of Trump actually having sex with Virginia Giuffre, there is no way that would bring him down.
And we should say that the Republicans are saying, well, Virginia Giuffre has said that Donald Trump is not implicated in any of this.
Yeah, sure, whatever. I mean, he might take you to court now for $1 billion.
Well, we don't want to be the second UK broadcaster to be taken to court.
That's going to be your problem, amigo, because I don't have $1 billion.
Yeah, but you can still be sued for whatever you have.
Okay.
James.
Whatever.
I think it's a serious danger for President Trump. I mean, everyone who's been these leaked emails seem to come out week after week, and they're hugely damaging. I mean, we saw what happened to Peter Mandelson as well. I can't really think about it in terms of victories. It's just so awful, this whole scandal, that I think I share the view it'd be good to get to the bottom of it. What really happened here, and who was involved.
But these
is there any
emails-
justice possibly for the people who were the victims?
And I said earlier on the programme that these emails, there doesn't seem to be any sort of smoking gun there. And if there was, surely they would have released others, because there's apparently 23,000 of them. So they've released 4 today.
I know.
How many of those relate to Donald Trump? I have no idea. But on the basis of what they've released today, you can't sort of say, well, he's in real trouble now.
The problem is the problem is twofold. First, Donald Trump enjoys getting this kind of flack. He uses it. And second, the Democrats are so bad at this. They're so like, oh, he's really toast now. You're like, no, he is not toast.
The timing's interesting as well, isn't it? With regards to the government shutdown there.
Yeah.
The timing seems sort of suspicious in terms of the leaking. Look, I've not seen the particular emails.
I don't think they were leaked. I think they published them.
Well, whatever. But, the publishing of these at this time, right during the fact that they're trying to reopen the government in the US and get people paid and get government going again, it seems there's politics at play here, and that shouldn't be the case with something so serious. Look, and also, as you say, this is just a snapshot of a much wider set of emails and documents. Clearly, until everyone's seen everything, really it's quite difficult to comment.
Stephen?
I think the reason that these emails are being released is because the shutdown ended, and that enabled that congresswoman to come and swear in. And as a result, they got the numbers to enable the publication of this cache of emails and other materials. I actually agree with James. We need accountability and justice in any case. If there's any evidence of criminal activity, whoever it is has to be held to account. But whether or not that's going to happen in the United States is completely a matter for Congress and the American system. And as a member of the government, I'm not going to comment on that. Regarding Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, he has
with a
said,
hyphen, it seems.
Mountbatten Windsor. Yes, he's hyphenated.
It was always spelled like that.
Oh, right, okay. He has said that he is prepared to cooperate with the inquiries and give evidence, and I hope that he remains true to his word.
Now, the shutdown is actually still in progress, and the House of Representatives is voting on the deal to end it in the next few hours. So you'll get some more news on that.
Oh, I thought that it enabled her to come and get sworn in.
I think once she is sworn in, I think that is the intention.
Right, that's the trigger. Okay,
but this comes before it.
Okay.
Let's go on to a different question. Jamie has an innovative solution to reduce prison overcrowding. Jamie in York says, does the panel think capital punishment should come back to help reduce prison overcrowding? Now, let me give the background to this, because there is some background. Independent MP Rupert Lowe, formerly of Reform UK, asked Keir Starmer during PMQs today whether he believes there should be a referendum on bringing back the death penalty for crimes so monstrous. But the Prime Minister said that is not the answer. Ranil?
No.
Do you want to expand on that?
I think we've seen, sadly, so many miscarriages of justice. Yes, perhaps for lesser crimes than Rupert Lowe was referring to today, but the risk there is so significant. And
is it with DNA now?
Well, but equally, think about where we're going technology-wise. All sorts of things are increasingly possible. So, no, I'm not in favour of reinstating the death penalty. If it was ever to be brought before the House, if I ever was in Parliament at that time, of course, I'd hear arguments. I think that's really important. For Parliament to hear arguments and for it to be a free vote as it has been in the past. But no would be my instinct, because the risk of innocent people being prosecuted, being sentenced to death, and us finding out later that they were innocent all along is just too great.
Okay, Stephen.
No, I agree with Ranil on this. We need to ensure that people who are found guilty of a crime are punished. But to have capital punishment where the risk of getting it wrong, even if that risk only happens in, 1 in 10,000 or 50,000 cases, that's one too many. That's not ethically the right place for the British government to be.
James.
Well, I saw the question. He did say when it was definitely clear who the perpetrator was. So, which my reason for saying no is executing the innocent is clearly wrong. Some of these cases are so appalling, you can see why he's asking the question. And, I'm not in favour of capital punishment, but I think a lot of people are wondering, whether the law is being upheld as well as it could be. So, I think it'd be interesting if there was a debate in Parliament on it, or if there was a debate in the country on it.
That's ridiculous. If the law isn't being upheld as well as it could be, in the sense that the justice system is creaking and the prisons are overcrowded, the answer to that is not to start killing criminals. That's not a good answer. There is a moral case here about the right of the state to take away the life of a human being, and there is a case that, however gruesome and appalling a person is, everybody is capable of redemption. Everybody is. We've all read about the most terrible criminals in Grendon, the world's first psychotherapeutic prison, and the kind of the way the human spirit can turn a corner. There is absolutely no justification for the state to take away your life.
I'm not in favour of the death penalty, but to think that somebody like Rose West or Fred West can be redeemed and rehabilitated is just for the birds.
I know, but it's not for you to say, is it? I mean, I'm not religious, but I know it's not for you to say. It's not for me to say, and it's not for us to take anybody. Anyway, listen, that's not even the point. The point is, you can't start killing people just because you can't run a justice system.
No, look, I am against.
The second point is.
Okay.
The second point is that we've seen how ugly these. As soon as these kind of absolutely toxic binary, uncompromising debates are thrown into the political arena, we have nasty fights about them that last for years, get us nowhere and take us away from the business.
It's called democracy, is it?
No, it's not about democracy. I'm sorry, Iain, that is not true. We've lived through the last 10 years of these binary politics where right-wing outriders like this Reform MP come in and they're like, hey, why don't we just secede from the Human Rights Act? Why don't we just leave Europe? Why don't we just have the death penalty? And we all spend years chasing our tails about these ugly ideas, and nothing gets done, and everything is worse afterwards.
Right, quick answers on this next one. Sharon in Taplow says, shouldn't bringing the jihadis like Shamima Begum back here from Syria just put all of us at risk for no benefit? That doesn't make sense. Wouldn't bringing jihadis like Shamima Begum back here from Syria just put all of us at risk for no benefit? Now, the Independent Commission on UK Counter-Terrorism has recommended that British-linked jihadis who are currently being detained in camps in Syria should be repatriated to this country, warning that the inhuman and degrading treatment in the camps means they risk becoming Britain's Guantanamo. Stephen, what are you doing, Zoe? Taking a picture of my text screen.
There's a really funny one saying,
I'm sure you're not allowed to under GDPR.
Saying, I wish they would just kill this cow on the radio.
God, to your point about polarised politics. Look, the courts looked at this some years ago and concluded that Shamima Begum was a threat to our national security, and therefore her British citizenship was revoked. I haven't had a chance to read this report. It sounds like it's made some interesting recommendations, and I'm sure that colleagues in the Home Office will look at that and consider it. But as things stand, the position is that she is not a British citizen and is not able to come back to the UK because she poses a threat to national security.
Ranil?
Yeah, I mean, we brought this change in the law in so that citizenship could be revoked. I mean, in relation to the previous conversation, it's right to punish people. If people have done things that are just so terrible, then there needs to be punishment. And this is one of those things that if someone has chosen an allegiance to another country and chosen that they want to join a terrorist state or an attempted terrorist state, then action should be taken. So I'm pleased to hear from the Minister that there's no plans to change it.
James?
I don't see any benefit to Britain bringing these people back, but she did go there as a child, and she may have been misled. And I think there might be some sort of court of consideration where people can appeal. that could be heard.
I mean, this is fun for me because I actually have read the report and I know exactly why they say we should bring her back. First, deprivation of citizenship is something only the UK does in such a completely cavalier way. Everybody else thinks they're crazy, even America, Canada, Australia, Germany. They've all got citizens who were gulled into going to fight on completely specious grounds when they were 15 years old, and they all take them back and punish them accordingly. They don't just leave them in refugee camps to die. The second point, Dominic Grieve made this point. He's one of you, right? A Tory.
You're saying he's gay?
No, I'm saying he's a Tory. No, it wasn't Dominic Grieve. It was Declan Murray, who used to be Lord Chief Justice of Northern Ireland. Said, you leave these young women in refugee camps with children who are British citizens,
but they're not.
And but just because you've deprived somebody of their citizenship doesn't mean they've got anywhere else to go.
This argument will continue in the next hour because that's the question we're going to be asking in the next hour. Should Shamima Begum be brought back? Now, our fun question is this from Grant in Warrington. A pub in Greater Manchester has worked out that the team who kept winning its weekly quiz and £30 bar tab prize were cheating by whispering into their smartwatches. But if you go to a pub quiz and play properly, what's your specialist subject? And do you have a team name which you can actually say on air? James.
Well, I'm going to go for Game of Thrones as my specialist subject. I watched every single episode.
That's great, yeah.
I miss it dearly. And I'd be Clan Reed, who are allies, of course, of the Starks from the north.
I gave up after Series 3. Stephen?
Welsh rugby teams of the 1970s, the golden generation, never, ever to be matched, I fear. And my quiz
JPL
team
Williams.
name... Exactly, one example.
Yeah.
So what an absolute
I know
maestro.
nothing about rugby, but I remember him.
Yes, one of the greatest fullbacks in history. But let's not go down that rabbit hole. And my team name would be the Stormtroopers.
And I actually think you've acquitted yourself really well as the Stormtrooper.
He's let himself down. Ranil.
I'm afraid team name, that's always someone else's decision. It's best to keep it that way.
You're supposed to be a leader.
Not anymore. But history, politics, I'm sorry, a bit boring, right? And cricket. So those would probably be the sorts of things I'd like to opine on.
Zoe.
Musicals is my specialist subject, and my team name I can't tell you, I'm afraid.
Go on.
I can't.
You know you want.
Oh, go on, Zoe.
I can't. No, I've just made such a fuss now. Look, everybody on your messages calling me woke girl.
Well, that's the kindest thing they're saying about you. Anyway, thank you all very much.
Character in the Avengers, I think.
Thank you all very much indeed. Now, on Monday's panel, we're going to be focusing on business in the lead up to this month's budget. We have wealth manager Gina Miller, also known for her legal challenges to the Brexit process, the inventor Richard Browning, who founded the technology startup Gravity Industries, the fine jewellery designer Kiki McDonough, whose clients include Queen Camilla, plus the drinks business entrepreneur and hotelier Steve Perez. So they'll all be here to take your questions on business in the run-up to the budget. Coming up in the next hour, as I said, we're going to return to the subject of Shamima Begum, which I've been covering, I think, for 10 years on this programme, off and on. And I must admit, I've changed my mind. Initially, my view was, we don't want people like her in this country. Get rid of her, keep her in Syria, don't care what happens to her. But surely we do have a responsibility to people who were born and brought up in this country when they go abroad and do terrible things. So I have changed my mind. I'm not fearful of her coming back. She may still have some jihadi views, but we have a criminal justice system. Let's subject her to it. Surely that's a sensible way forward. 0345 6060 973.
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom, the White House says leaked emails in which paedophile Jeffrey Epstein discusses Donald Trump are nothing more than a manufactured